So the essence of the maples, the one thing I try to do with thinking about pruning and is to look and the trees in the garden is to look at what is the growth habit of the tree, how they usually, without us touching it, how they grow, and then emphasize that, or try to adjust to the situations that we are putting them on. One thing that I try to remember people is try to pick up the right shape and size for the space. Maples are, they are okay about pruning, but you do have to maintain them pruning them, and you cannot prune too hard. So it's kind of like a regular ongoing thing. So for the shape, we have here 3 examples of like the different type of maples that you can get. So the red one will be the more rounded. It can be multi-trunk or single trunk, but it has that more round shape, and it usually has a lot of that horizontal branching that people like. You can get it in green or red, but the important thing is to know that that is kind of like the growth habit of the tree. That is how they usually grow. And that is what you want, I emphasize, or that is what you want that tree to be. The dome shape is what we call the lace leaf maples. They're kind of like cascade down, so the branches just whip down. So those are really good to put it like close to ponds and stuff like that. They are really nice trees for focal point places that where they will not grow too tall. I do have to say that I have few of these trees that are like 10, 12 feet tall, and I have ones that are 4 feet tall or 3 feet tall. So there are a lot of heights on that, and the height is controllable. The one thing about this tree is if you let it grow really tall and then you want to reduce it, is really difficult. So those dome-shaped trees, you want to keep up with the height. If the tree just go to your height, so then you really need to keep up on maintaining the height. They have a little bit more like a really thin leaves and tender leaves. So those are usually for shade. The red ones, they tolerate a little bit more the sun. And then we have the V shape, and the V shape, how the arrows are showing here, are the ones that grow up and out. So try to remember these 3 different shapes because they do develop like that, and it's really hard to change the shape of how they usually grow. The V shapes structurally, the main branches, the main structure, the trunks will go up, and then they develop little branching out. So for the V shape. So they are really good specimens to put as a focal points, but they do have their personalities, and that is really difficult to change. So then when we prune the maples, how I do is we have 3 seasons. I say my maintenance, if you are my client, and say, okay, if I want to maintain your tree, there are 2 visits I'm going to do every year: winter pruning and spring pruning. Winter pruning, I am giving you a little bit of the dates because it's usually asked. So winter pruning is between December and February. You can prune anytime between December and February. The thing about winter pruning that you have to be aware of is that when it's really cold, we have those really cold days. I was like, if you prune your tree, sometimes it breaks easily because it's too cold for them. So just be aware of that. Try to pick up a day that is not raining or is super, super cold. And the other thing is that they drip a little bit of sap, which is okay. They are going to do it because it's supposed to be, I mean, it's a wound, and there's supposed to be a lot of water in their system, so they draw sap, but nothing major is going to happen from that. Then we have a spring pruning. Spring pruning, I do it between April and June. Yeah, in spring pruning is a lot of the thinning out, so like that the tree will not get really thick, and then you lose your lower branches. And in fall pruning is August and October, and and I'm going to explain what is important in fall later. But the one thing about fall pruning is, and that's why I put here, leave it for the experts, because fall pruning, only do it if you know what you're doing. A lot of the times, if you go and do fall pruning, the tree gets really stunted. So it's really important that you are careful with the fall pruning. However, we do have 3 prunings a year, and you can select it according with these explanations that I'm going to give to you. So the winter season. In the winter season, what the tree is doing? The tree should be fully dormant. And I put this here because a lot of the times when the trees start waking up in the middle of winter, we had last year and 2 years ago when it was really dry, some of the maples start coming out and waking up from dormancy. And that is not good for the maple itself, because they are putting energy in something that is gonna go back to dormancy again. So we wanna prune our trees when they are fully dormant. It's a good time to plant and transplant your maples. I had done a lot of transplanting this year. So because they are fully dormant, so you can actually like cut some of the roots and, you know, disturb the tree in many ways, and they are fully dormant. They are still, they take it really well. Do not transplant in spring. That is the worst time you can transplant. So then in winter, we're gonna do one of the winter prunings, which is really important. The one thing I put here and I highlighted is do not prune if your tree starts to lift out. And that is really important. So right now, 2 of my clients called me and they told me, hey, Elizabeth, my trees the leaves are coming out. You can see it getting out. And I was kind of like, oh, well, we're gonna have to wait for next year then. And we just missed this winter pruning. And the reason why is because as soon as I do a cut in maples that are waking up, I'm gonna have a lot of shoots coming out from that cut. So I'm actually doing the opposite of what I want. If I wanted to thin it out and look it pretty, and this is not what I wanna do. If I wanted to reduce it, it's gonna shoot out even more. So if your tree is waking up, do not do it. That's why you have 3 months to do it. So in winter pruning, what do we do? Structural work. So what do I mean with structural work? You are gonna do your big cuts. That doesn't mean that so pretty much what I'm saying is if you have to reduce your tree really strong or cut a big branch, this is the time to do it in winter season. The tree is gonna recover better, the tree is gonna react from it better, and it's not gonna weaken your tree. So this is what I am looking right now. So I have a budget still of $30. What do I mean with my pruning budget? How much I wanna remove from the tree when I prune. So I don't wanna see half of the tree in the floor and half of the tree up there. That means I cut too much. I wanna only see 30% of my tree in the floor. And in winter pruning, sometimes I do 3 cuts because it's structural, and I remove 30% already. So we have to be aware of that. And
Elizabeth?
so, yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you just a second. A couple of people have asked if we can put the slide in full screen mode.
Yeah.
Is that possible to do?
So I am going to do this. No, because, okay. So if we put it in a full screen mode, what is going to happen is that I'm not going to be able to do my videos. I got 2 videos.
Gotcha.
We can try, but if we get in trouble, so then we all know what happened. Let's do it. Ready? It's showing?
No, it just says loading.
Yeah, that is what is happening. That is why we didn't do it.
Okay.
So, so then we have spring pruning. So then we have the time to go. Oh, so, okay. So then this is a good time to do reductions. So a lot of the times I start with my structural, and if I had maybe 1 cut, so I did keep going with reduction and stuff like that. I just be aware that I can only cut 30% of my tree, or it will do the opposite thing. So how do I approach my winter pruning? the first thing I do is cut my 3 Ds, dead, disease, and damage. So always cut those. It's really difficult to know if the branches are dead or not. So you look at the color, you look at the buds, you peel a little bit the cambium, and you can see if it's green. If it's green, it's alive. And it's good that you clean the dead, because a lot of the times people cut the good one and then they realize that the branch that they left was dead. So always cut the dead, disease, and damage first. Then you are going to identify your structure. So in the picture, I am showing how I highlight in green the structure. And how do I identify the structure? I go from the bottom up and I look at every single branch. So that is going to help you to identify your structure and to see what the problem is. So to be less complicated at the drawing, let's look at the picture, let's look at the drawing. So in the drawing, I go from the bottom up and I start looking at my branches one by one. So then I realize that here I have one branch coming from the bottom and growing and crowding the other branch. So then I go up and I look at these branches are nice, this branch is nice. There is a broken here, so I'm gonna damage here. And then I go here and I look at these two. These two are nice, both of them, but they are growing close together. So they are competing. So I wanna cut one of them. So I go here, there is one that I keep going up and I found this one that is going from starting in one side and crossing and on top of the other one. So that is crowding the branch, is crossing, so I wanna cut it. So I identify already 3 branches I wanna cut right away. So I cut my dead and disease and damage, and then I cut my crowding. So that is what we need to do with the structural work. We are gonna start finding out and then do exactly that. We don't do a lot of thinning if it's not necessary. If I cut all the blue and I am already cutting 30%, that is the pruning that I can do this year. So, okay, so now I wanna do the videos. So I'm gonna stop this. And
All right, I'll see if there are any further questions here. Question is, when the tree is too tall, does it mean you can cut the height by 30%?
yes.
Thank you.
So this is a maple and we are doing a structural pruning. One of the things that I am seeing in this maple and is that it's coming too much towards the entrance. So one of the things that I have been working on is training this branch below in the back to generate nice branching and develop while getting ready to cut this one. So this is one of the structural prunings that we're gonna do today, and it's gonna be cutting the branch right here. So my pruning cut will be here. And in that case, now we have a more thin branch and a more soft look at the entrance.
Okay, so that is the first video. I do structural pruning. One thing I do wanted to add about the answer I have before was that when you are cutting 30% of the height of the tree, that will be all the pruning you can do. And you want to find out how to cut it. So let me explain to you. You always want to cut to something. So if I have this branch, you see, so I have this branch. I am able to cut 30% by, like, for example, you have it here, by removing certain height here maybe cutting here, maybe cutting here and here. So what I am trying to say is, if you end up not having anything to cut to, you may be not able to cut 30% of your tree at once. So the 30% is how much you can cut. The other thing is, if you decide to do your 30% only in one side, you are gonna find out that later on that side is the one that is gonna shoot out the strongest, because pruning is a stimulation. Winter pruning is a stimulation that makes it's a stronger stimulation from and then, so what I am suggesting, if you want to reduce your tree 30% or like that much, like reduce it that low, so that means see up your tree, look at the structure, see if you find out where you can cut, and you're gonna cut to something. I don't want to see cuts that are like this, because what is going to happen with this, that is going to make the tree shoot out, and in spring that tree is going to be as tall as you had it before. So that is when I say, when you want to pick up a maple in the size that it's actually going to fit up the size. Yes, you can control the size of the maple, but you have to go slower in the reduction, because if you go too strong, your maple is going to react way stronger and it's going to grow in an unruly way. So for example, I have here, like, you will have branches like that. They are really long and they are not branches with the usual growth habit of the tree, that they are usually like that. So if you prune it too strong, this is what you're gonna get. So I will say, yes, you can remove 30% of the tree at the top, but you have to have good transitions in your cut, and you want to have the whole 30% all around your tree, not just in one section. I'm gonna share the other video.
Now I'm gonna work in the unrolling shoots at the top. So the first shoot I'm gonna work on is this one. So it's not like I go and just cut the shoots somewhere. I try to see where they're coming from. So here I have a shoot that I can cut to, and removing two of those really long shoots from the last year. So we have that cut. Now I have this one. So I have this little one here.
Elizabeth, I think we have audio, but the video is not moving.
Oh, the video is not moving? Oh, okay. Stop the sharing. Okay. Okay.
Then I have this one. That done.
Okay, let me start it again.
I'm working the unrolling shoots at the top. So the first shoot I'm gonna work on is this one. So it's not like I go and just cut the shoots somewhere. I try to see where they're coming from. So here I have a shoot that I can cut to, and removing two of those really long shoots from the last year. So we have that cut. Now I have this one. So I have this little one here. So I will have the cut done. Then I have this one. Cut done. And like that, I keep going through the cut. So I'm always cutting through something. I have this one. So cut something. So it keep, even though I'm cutting those long shoots, it keep looking.
Okay, so in this video, you can use that same sample in a different scale. So right now I'm just cutting, in that video, I was cutting the unrolling shoots, but you see, I was looking to where to cut. And I always cut to a branch that was next to it, guiding it to the way that I needed to grow. But you can make this the same function in the structural way, or like the bigger branches. So you, if you find something to cut to in the bigger branches, to a branch that you like, you can do that too. And that's how you reduce your tree in size, in height, and in width, in the width. And then now the thinning, what it is.
One's going out. Beautiful.
Oh, sorry, we were just looking at it. Here.
Here I am working in some thinning to make the maple a little bit more open and branch definition. So the one I'm working on, so we have this branch here, and then this branch here. So one of the things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove this one because these two have a really nice flow. This one is kind of like in the middle and not adding anything. And this one also have a nice flow. So I am gonna come and cut here. Well, actually I have to cut this one before I can cut the one I wanna cut. And now I have a better, more open branch definition. So
okay, so any questions about the videos or anything? Hello? Okay, I hope I'm still on. So I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna wait for the questions for later.
I'm
So,
sorry, Elizabeth, I had muted myself there, but no additional questions right now except about transplanting, which we'll leave for later.
okay, so this is still winter pruning, and the videos that I show you, I wanna add the videos that I show you. You can do that, examples of reduction in height and reduction of the unwinding growth, and when it's spring. It's just that when it's spring, it's really hard to take the videos. So because you can't see, because of the many branches. So that's why I do it right now. But I think that really explains to you what thinning is, how do I look at the branches, and how you can control your tree by pruning. So remember, pruning in winter, the big cuts. Pruning in spring, you're gonna do a lot of thinning cuts. So this is in winter, for example, we had, this is the before with the unrolling and a lot of the thickness. And at the end of spring, at the end of my winter pruning, I can see through, and I have reduced some of the height that I needed. So it's not like I try to fix every single thing in one of the prunings, because if I already did my 30%, I am gonna stop. That's why I don't stay in one point when I am doing the trees. I go around and around and around. So when I finish with my 30%, I have a balanced tree. Now, spring season. In spring season, the one thing that I want you to realize when you're looking at your trees is that is the strongest growth of the year. And for me, as a pruner, I want to care for the trees. You know, I want them to be healthy. Those are my clients, not the people that pay me, but the trees. So listening to the trees, understanding the trees, looking at the trees, and knowing what is happening is important. So if your tree is not growing in spring as strong as usual, that means something happened last fall. It could be that you cut your irrigation way earlier and it was dry for a long time, which happens 2 winters, 2 years ago with a lot of trees. In winter, in spring didn't rain, so they got stressed. So it's really important that you look at your spring growth and assess your tree. The one thing I want to say is, for spring pruning, you want to do your spring pruning, you want to let the tree grow before you start your spring pruning. You don't want to do it right when the things are shooting, like in March, in the middle of March, maybe a little bit too early. So I start my spring pruning in April, and maybe in April, I am doing my spring pruning in Walnut Creek, in areas that they already started to grow earlier. So in my spring prunings, what I do a lot of that thinning, that video that I showed you. You wanna selectively remove some of the branches, like things that are duplicates, things that are parallel, things that are crossing. You wanna remove one and leave one. If you do one cut there, that is your cut. Move around, look at the other branch. Don't stay fixing everything in one branch. Create space between branches. When I create a space in between branches, I try to cut wherever is going up and wherever is going down. So if I have my branch here and I need to generate, I have another branch coming here, so I will remove this branch. If I like this branch, but I have something like this going on, so what I will do is I remove some of this height in this branch, and I remove from here, I remove some of these branches, some of these that are coming down. And that is how I make a space in between branches and do that branch definition. So you have 2 ways to do it. You have 2 ways to do it. You remove the whole branch that is in between branches, so you generate space, or you just remove from the branch, you remove the ones that are going up and the ones that are going down and generate that space. In the reduction in size, you also, again, if you are going to reduce in size, you always want to try to look to see what you can cut to. So you still have 30% of the budget. In spring, it's hard because in spring you have so many leaves and you have so much growth, but keep up with the 30% and you're gonna see that you can really reduce your tree. So this is the example of my 30% of pruning in one spring. So this is the tree and this is how it looks after I did the pruning in spring. Now in fall. In fall, the reason why I put fall here is because fall is a really good month for like the maintenance of the maples. And what do I mean with that?
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Elizabeth, do you want to have a slide back up?
Oh, it's up.
You're not shared screen sharing right now.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you. So in fall, the one thing that I wanna remember, the listening of the trees or assessing the tree. Okay, fall is really important month for that. When the tree is doing the fall color, the first thing that I wanna check in fall is my pods. These are the seed pods of the maples, and usually they are produced in fall. So one of the things is, like, remember 2-3 years that we had that drought. I have like 2002, 2001, my maples, like maybe 15% of my maples were producing the seed pods right after the spring pruning. So what that is indicating? That is indicating that the tree is not gonna grow anymore and that the trees may be stressed. So the pods, recognize your pods, look the seed pods, see where they are and see when they develop. If you have, a few little seed pods here and there, it's okay. But if your full tree has seed pods, that means it's something, it's a stress. is stop growing. Don't prune too hard, you know. The other thing that the trees are doing is storing the energy in the root system. So that is really important. That is why sometimes I don't do any transplanting or planting in fall, because I want my trees to put all that stored energy. If for any reason, let's say that I didn't put water in my tree in fall, my tree didn't have any water to be able to get nutrients from the soil, so it didn't store any nutrients, what is going to happen next year? My tree is not going to grow in shoot. My tree is just going to put the leaves out, and that is it. So fall storing energy is really important. If your tree is not looking good, is stressed, is having is not still recovered from our drought, so then fertilizing fall is a good time to fertilize. Trees, the fall color means that the tree is preparing for winter. That is why I tell you not to prune in fall that much, because the trees are doing their own thing. They have homework, and their homework, special homework, is in fall. So the special homework is to store the energy and to prepare for winter. If we are pruning at that time, we are kind of distracted the tree from doing what they need to do. So the best, the pruning I do is, my budget is 10%. So it's really little. I only do it if I must do it. Let's say that it's a tree that I'm having a hard time really reducing it. So then I do fall pruning. I do 10% only, because I can see how it will stand the tree or weaken the tree. Yeah. So this is one of the pictures of fall pruning I do sometimes, when I am like, okay, I cut too hard in one section and that section shoot out. And so then instead of waiting all the way for winter, because, you know, it's a focal point tree, so then I go and remove that cut, and I just do really quick. That will be 2-3 cuts, and that is it. So those are my 3 prunings. So main, structural, winter. Then you're thinning at the top and at the inside, definition of branches and branch separation in spring. And then fall if you have to. Other than that, just spring and winter are the best times to prune. These are the products that I use for the maples. So I use the Happy Frog for the Japanese maples, the fertilizer for Japanese maples. And the reason why I emphasizing to use a fertilizer for Japanese maples is because Japanese maples, they don't really want to be fertilized. They get a little bit of the burning the leaves if you are fertilizing too much. If the fertilizer that you are using is too acid, they will not grow as much. So it seems like they are really sensitive to it. I have some maples that some people was putting Maxine every year. It puts a lot of Maxine, the fertilizer, the liquid fertilizer, which the numbers are really high, like these numbers here. They were like 14, 18, 20, something like that. That is really high number. So that is really a strong concentration. So, and what happened is the trees are just not growing that much. The other thing I suggest, if you are fertilizing, use a fertilizer that use mycorrhizae. That helps for the plant to get water even in dry conditions. And the other thing is, if you are transplanting and planting, one of the things I try to put, you know, like let's say that I transplanted in January. I transplant my plant, in February, I can put a little of this help. So that helps for the root development. So those are the fertilizers I use them. I use fertilizers that have really small numbers. In the numbers that I'm talking about is the NPK. So it's really important. Then one thing I saw since COVID is that now certain rodents know that they can eat the bark to get nutrients because they are eating the cambium. So I now less than in COVID year, but now I see a lot of rats eating the bark. So this is a product that you can put in the bark for the rats not to eat, and it also prevents sunburn if you're having sunburn. Daffodils are bulbs that the golfers, they don't like to eat, so they kind of like go around and don't disturb the roots in the trees if you're having problems with golfers. And then if you're doing planting on your garden, please put golfer baskets. Even if you have to make your own with metal wire, do golfer baskets, because a lot of the moths, balls, and golfers do like to eat the root system. They are smart. That's what the nutrients are. And the last is if you have like whiteflies, sometimes maples get when they are in situations where they are really crowded. So then the one thing that you can use before you spray, because maples are really sensitive to a lot of sprays, is just spray with water really strong, and that will kill the flies, the white flies. So yeah, so now we have the Q&A. So I'm ready.
We have a lot of questions, some of which you've already answered, but one of the good questions was, you told us about the Happy Frog fertilizer. What time of year is best for fertilizing the maples?
Fall.
Do you fertilize at all in the spring?
Well, you know, spring is a good one too, actually. But you asked me for the best. So the best is fall, but spring is really good because, you know, if anything happened, so the thing is, anything happened before, like winter and everything, that will not. So pretty much what I'm trying to say, let me back up. What I'm trying to say is a lot of the times when we put fertilizers, like in spring for certain things, will show later on. For maples, if you fertilize in spring, it's gonna show like maybe in later on in summer or late spring. But spring, the growing season, is usually a good time to fertilize as well.
Okay. One person is worried that the gopher baskets will restrict the root growth of the tree. Is that a problem?
Yeah, I do have to say that when I put trees, I made my own golfer baskets, and I do them according with how big the tree is gonna be. I usually make, 36 by 36 golfer baskets. But at the end of the day, the important thing is the roots will go through it and it will embed and eat the golfer basket. However, you still have some of that root system protected, and that is what it saves the tree. So yes, but it still works, and it's not restricted in a way that the root is not gonna grow. Is that the root is gonna go through, and it's fine.
And I'll add too that the gopher baskets rust, decompose, and by the time the root is big enough to be constricted, it would probably break right through the wire of the gopher basket. And by then the root system's big enough that if the gophers eat a few, that's okay. Yeah. Let's see. Are all of the leaves on the trees supposed to fall off in the winter? Is that, if they don't all fall off, is that a sign of anything bad?
Oh no. So okay, that's such a good question, because sometimes I am not so clear. So when I say you don't want to see any leaves in your tree, or your leaves, it needs to be fully dormant. That also that doesn't mean, okay, don't get confused, because some of the maples, like the less leaf maple and the bloodgood, the red one, the leaves just die and stay there, but they are dry. They're fully dry. They are not photosynthesizing. So that is still dormancy. So if your tree has leaves, but they are all dry, that is fully dormant, and you can do your pruning. You want to just remove those leaves.
Great. Anything special about pruning the cascading forms of the maples, which don't it's a little harder sometimes to see the structure that what we want to have on them.
Yeah, so for the cascading, you know, I always say the cascading is the rule breaker, because, you know, we talk about not crossing, and the cascading does that crossing. And I wanna emphasize that crossing because that is the beauty of that maple. So what I try to do is I try to do that branch separation. So if I have two crossing, but they are too close and they are growing into each other, so then maybe I do have to remove one and leave the crossing I like most. I try to, when with those, one of the things that happen a lot is that if you are cutting too much, you see this easily. So one of the problems I see with those maples is that they are put in really contained spaces, and they don't realize how wide these trees will grow. They will grow somewhere. If it's not high, it's wide. So you have to give them at least 4 feet, 5 feet for them to spread. So what happens is I see them like in pathways where people is cutting them and cutting them and cutting them. So they get all unruled. So they lose the habit, the growth habit. Instead of having that growth habit that is nice and tender like this, they start having something like unruled like this. So in that place, in that moment, that is when I say, you know, those sections where the path is, maybe those are the ones that you want to do in fall and reduce some in fall. So like the tree start going back to their normal growth. So one of the things is if you're having a lot of that unruled situation, what we have to do is let the tree stop reacting and grow back to grow, let it go back to growing like that. And then you are gonna start reducing some of that, preparing for winter cutting in fall. So in fall, I go and I say, okay, that branch that I'm gonna cut that is going through and rubbing. A lot of the times when we have crossing is fine in that tree, but you don't want branches to do this. So if they are doing that, you're gonna have to remove one. So if you're gonna remove one and it's a tree that is over stimulating but having all that unruled growth, so then I come and cut it somewhere, it doesn't matter where, in fall, and I remove it. And then I wait for that branch maybe a year or two to react, and then I come and cut it in maybe next winter. So that is how I kind of I am able to contain those plants without losing the growth habit, because that is one of the problems I see on them.
I want to tell everybody, because there are a couple of questions about reviewing the slides. The recording of the webinar will be available for everybody on Tuesday, either on the Sloat website where you go to the webinars, Learn tab, and then webinars, or on the Sloat YouTube channel where you can just probably search for Sloat and pruning maples and come up with it. So Tuesday it'll be available for everybody and you can review the slides. The deck itself won't be available by itself. A couple of people are talking about some blotchy gray stuff on the branches. It sounds like these are slightly older trees and they're concerned that these might be disease. Any ideas there for what they're looking at and whether that's normal bark or something, how to tell if it's something different?
It can be like the only thing that I see like that is just like patches like that I will say that can be fungal, so you can use something a fungicide. However, you have to treat it in winter because the leaves are really sensitive. Anything that you put is going to burn the leaves. So if you have like a fungal disease, like patches of brown kind of like growing there, so then you have to use a fungicide. You can use even copper if you want to, but you just have to do it way before even the buds start opening up. The only thing that the maples are really prone to is verticillium wilt. And verticillium wilt is you totally see because it just part of the branch just get brown, get black, and die. And it's just like immediate die. It's pretty close to fire blight, if it just to give you like a pretty close in the look, no, in the symptoms to fire blight. So that is the only thing that maples are really susceptible to it.
Okay, now what about a real young maple? Often what's available to buy at a reasonable price is a pretty small tree. Maybe it's 3 feet, 4 feet at the most, with just a few little branches spaced out along it. How should people approach pruning on these guys?
The pruning of the young trees, I only do a structural pruning if they need it. So pretty much, you know, sometimes they are so young, people go and tell, oh, what are you gonna do? I'm like, okay, let's see. Because if I must, I do. If I don't have to, I wait, because that is giving the trees all the little branches to photosynthesize and everything. So the structural I will look is, are they two branches growing in the same point? That is really normal in a young tree. So you want to remove one of them, and that will be it. You know, like some little cats, really little cats, because they are young, they react really kind of like crazy. And so you want to kind of like, okay, little by little. So the other one that they do a lot is they have maybe two major, let's say that is a multi-trunk. So they have two major trunks and they go really sharp like that. So maybe I try to open them up and open the angle. So they are, they grow like structurally, that is better. You want to have like a 45 opening angle here. So then I do things like that. If they're growing really skinny and long and they're not doing much, so then I reduce a little bit of it. But so a little bit is a little bit. So in the sense of if this is my maple and it's growing, but it's just, so what I do is I try to cut maybe right above, I don't know if you can see it, right above the buds, I cut, and I just kind of like, we call it tipping, just tip a little bit, tip 1/4 of it. And so that, what it does is when you remove the tip of the branches, what it does is remove the hormone. There is a hormone at the tip. So when you cut, what you do is you remove that hormone and makes the tree stimulating growing thicker. So not thicker, but like more branching. So that is what you want to do. So just look at the structure, and the structure will tell you if you need to do any pruning.
In terms of the angle you use when you cut, can you describe how you decide what that angle is?
Yeah. So I have branch here I can show. So in this case, I have this branch and I am gonna cut to this branch. So what I do is my shears are pointing to the branch I'm cutting, and that will be the angle. So I go, so it doesn't really have like bumps or anything. The cuts are not so they're more like rounded as possible, and you can see from any of the angles that you see the branch, it has like a bump. I don't go too deep in my cut, so I'm gonna do another one to show you. That will be a little bit too deep. You see how the branch is, how the cut is kind of like more oval. You want to go though with a cut that is a little bit more rounded, and you want to go with the branch that you are cutting. So the branch that you are cutting gives you the angle.
All right, and to that same point, somebody mentioned that they often have about an inch of the stem that dies back after they cut, that means that they're leaving too long a stub compared with the branch that they're trying to let grow.
Yeah. And what is the important thing about that? The important thing is that we have to remember that trees will grow by layering, layer and layer and layer in the cambium, you know? So that is kind of like how they do. So what happens is if you leave a stub, let's say that I cut here, and I leave that stub, which is not that big. So what happens is this is gonna take way longer for the tree to wall off, to generate a layer that covers. But if I go as the other one, I go a little bit close, that will give the plant the possibility to cover that wound faster.
Wonderful. Let's see here. A couple of people have squirrels that seem to eat the new buds on the tips of the branches. Should they be worried about that? Is that kind of natural pruning, or should they try to deter the squirrels in some way?
They eat the buds when they are dormant or when they are starting to come
It
out.
sounds like probably just as they start to leaf out and they're
Okay.
yummy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I try to tell people, let's don't fight with nature that much. And that one is not so bad, because what is gonna happen is the leaf is gonna come out, the squirrels and even the deer is gonna nub in those nice young shoots. And then what is gonna happen is another leaf is gonna come out. The one thing that I do wanna make sure that is not happening is that the rats are eating the cambium, because they eat the cambium and that part is not gonna recover. It's not gonna heal. Nothing is gonna grow in there. That is a damage that we wanna prevent. Rather than that, they can munch a little.
Right. The cambium, for people who don't know, is a layer of cells that's just inside the bark, and that is responsible for carrying all the water and nutrients up and down through the tree. And if it gets damaged all the way around the tree, we call it girdling, and that can kill the tree. So rats and voles are particularly harmful, eating the bark of the tree, and they don't have to go very far in to damage the sensitive cambium layer. And so that's why you want to keep an eye out for that kind of damage and protect the trunk. It'll usually be in the first 6 inches or so of the trunk. Okay, let's see. I think we are about there. We will be happy to take further questions. You can email us at Sloat, find the email address on our website, and we're always happy to answer questions. And want to thank Elizabeth for another terrific presentation. Join us Wednesday at 5 o'clock for San Francisco microclimate plants, and then join me next week, Saturday, this time, for the spring vegetable garden. So we'll say sayonara for now, and hope to see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.